So I know for sure that he just hates this tonight, having to sit there and listen to us all talk about it. Becky was telling us yesterday that Paul recently caught a big walleye right out here behind the hotel recently, and I'm pretty sure he's mentally casting a line out there right now. And if this event goes on too long, he'll physically be out there. So I'll get on with it, but let me warn you, at 12 years after joining Team Dyster, I have some things to get off my chest. But don't worry, Paul, most of it's good. I'm retired from politics, folks, thank God. But over 20 plus years, I worked with a lot of candidates. And Paul Dyster is the only one who ever walked into headquarters a week before a competitive primary, looked at a dozen volunteers, all working on mailings and phone calls, and told them they had to take a break and go outside because the sky looked incredible. And I think that episode tells us a few things about the mayor. First, he has a healthy perspective because his life does not begin and end with politics. He had a good life and career before politics, he'll have those things after. And because he can see a world beyond politics, he wanted to make sure we did too. That decent, level-headed guy you see at meetings and on TV is the same guy I've spent countless hours with at the dining room table working on campaign strategy. He's the same guy who played with Legos with my son and who sent flowers to our house on St. Patrick's Day to say thanks for writing the State of the City address. And even in unscripted, unguarded moments when he can say whatever he wants, he still leaves so much unsaid. He almost never says anything bad about anybody. Not even people who have treated him badly. Not that that's a long list. Because again, life for him is more than his job. And it's just not worth it to him to wallow. Now, those late night conversations may not get negative, but they can get a little lengthy. I lovingly call this the Dyster vortex. You think you need 10 minutes to make a quick decision on something, and 2 hours later you're calling your wife, honey, I'm running late. The mayor got to talking about designing streets to handle storm runoff again. He does love to get beyond the surface on stuff, way beyond the surface. When we were working on Diane Vitello's 2002 city court race, then council member Dyster offered to write an endorsement letter to his supporters, and at one meeting he debated whether to sign the letter as Paul or Councilman Dyster, and then he wondered whether he should include PhD or not. This was more of a monologue than a dialogue, and I remember thinking the whole thing at the time was a little strange. But I have truly come to appreciate his mindfulness. It's actually pretty refreshing in a time when some, at the highest levels of government, are so awfully irresponsible with their words. Anyone who stops to contemplate the stars is also inclined to consider his place in the universe and the footprint he creates because he knows his words and actions matter. Which leads me to the final lesson that I drew from that starry September night in 2011. There we were all sitting in a Pine Avenue campaign office focused on nuts and bolts. Mayor Dyster wanted us to see more than what was right in front of our faces. And that vision has been his greatest contribution as mayor. For him, the necessities of municipal government were a jumping off point, not an end point. Hence his focus on the Parkway, the train station, the Great Lakes, public art, special events, to name just a few of the items that have caused people with less ambition to deride him for looking beyond the obvious. He understood what the futurist Alvin Toffler wrote. You gotta think about big things while you're doing small things, so that all the small things go in the right direction. And now things are going in the right direction. Niagara Falls today is where Buffalo was not so long ago, ready to pop. All because this mayor gathered state, federal, and private partners around a bigger vision. In the coming years, we will see a series of groundbreakings and ribbon cuttings for projects staked firmly on the foundation he has built. And politics being politics, other people will stand in his place and claim credit for his work. In some cases, they will be the very people who relentlessly undermined the winning strategy all along the way. And they will bask in the glow of his accomplishments without a hint of irony. And Paul couldn't care less. As long as the work gets done, who cares about the credit? Because he has always had his eye on something bigger than himself or any one of us. He's been looking beyond the horizon, up at the sky. And he leaves behind a constellation of accomplishments that we will all be able to stand and admire for decades to come. You know, 12 years is a long shelf life for an elected official, especially for a Niagara Falls mayor. And maybe a bit of Dyster fatigue has set in. But it won't be long before we see that Joni Mitchell had it right. Don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you've got till it's gone? What we've had for the past dozen years is an incredibly rare blend of humanity, thoughtfulness, and vision. When I reflect on all those candidates I supported over 22 years, I can think of a select few who made it worthwhile. Paul Dyster is at the very top of that list. And for that reason, all the hard work has been for me a labor of love. Because all I ever wanted out of politics was a leader who would treat this city with the care and respect that it deserved. Mayor Dyster, thank you for being that leader.